This week, we're talking about roleplay, how to get into it, how to get into character, and how to bring out those fun roleplay experiences in-game. We'll give you some tips and tricks if you're really stuck on finding a voice and finding those characteristics. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. This is the podcast brought to you in partnership with the Dice Dungeon, who are your supplier for premium D&D dice here in the UK, shipped worldwide. You can get 10% off your order and support the show by following the link in the description or using the code We Speak Common on checkout. It's also the podcast brought to you in partnership with Describe. Describe, spelled D-S-C-R-Y-B, offers over 14,000 scenes of places, monsters, and spells, and the collection just keeps on growing. It's just like box text that you'd find in your normal adventure book, but it's designed to be read out loud in your own campaign. Free your creative energy and time for all the other aspects of playing and running the perfect adventure, and stay ahead of your wayward party with the help of Describe's finely crafted box text. You can visit describe.com, that's DSCRYB.com, and use the code COMMON at checkout for 10% off, or follow the link in the description below. And as ever, we'll talk a little bit more about our fantastic partners later in the show. Today, for a wonderful episode of Table Fables, I am joined by my longtime friend, Wesley. Hello, Wes.
Hello. I'm incredibly nervous, just to warn everyone now. I'm getting this out of the way, okay?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I love this. So, Wesley, you are episode 4 of this mini-series of Meet the Mod Team on the Discord server, and we'll talk more about that later too. So you're the kind of capstone, so no pressure.
Oh, great. Okay.
But what's really fun as well is so obviously this show has a long history. If you're a new listener, Joe, who was my co-host for 2.5 years, I've known him since, halfway through primary school, but I've actually known you longer than I knew Joe for. So our history is deeper.
It's deeper and longer, and it's had its falls and its ups. So...
Hey, hang on a minute. We've had falls? What? I don't know.
I'm trying to make it sound more dramatic, Ben.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, yeah, we had a hatred rivalry to begin with.
Yes.
I actually remember, the first day I met you, in nursery, which is so bizarre, because I remember nothing from, the age...
You remember
nothing
this?
from the age of 6. Yeah.
Okay.
I was really nervous because I was a 4-year-old kid and I just moved to this weird end arse of nowhere county in the UK, and I was trying to find someone to talk to, and I think you came over to me first, and then I met Paul, who I haven't spoken to in years. So our friendship is it's gone through the test of time.
I remember very little from nursery, by the way. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember some kiwis on a plate that I very much enjoyed when I was 4 years old.
What a weird memory.
That's it. Out of everything that happened then, my brain thought that was the best moment.
This is the thing, I never understand how people remember things from when they're kids, because I remember nothing. Phoebe, she remembers, her whole childhood, and I'm I have no memories before the age of 10.
Yeah, I really don't have that many. As I said, a kiwi. I don't know why that stuck, but it did.
Maybe it's all the trauma that you and I both went through. Maybe that's what it is. We just blocked it out.
Definitely.
That's my working theory, anyway. So I have, against your best will, pulled you onto an episode today because although you are an incredibly humble person and you're gonna refute this claim, you are, out of everybody I've ever played D&D with, the best role player that I know.
Why does this no?
Yeah, I know. I don't want to put the pressure on, but it is true. And I know Sam won't be afraid of me saying this because he's said to me a number of times that when he plays in campaigns with us, you are the role player that he looks up to as he's that's the level I want to be at. So when he told me that, I was like, good, someone else believes it. I'm going to get Wesley on an episode and talk about
great.
RPing.
Okay. Sure.
Because you're so good. You are so good, and you get so into character. And we're going to talk all about this today. But I think there's something natural about it in the way you do it too. And I want to get just into your brain and get all of your tips and tricks on being involved and deep in character. And can we just put on the table that you weren't a theatre kid either, were you?
No, I wasn't.
No.
I was the opposite of a theatre kid. I enjoyed drama and things, but I never I think as a kid I was a lot more in my shell, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then as I grew up into the adult years, I said, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Let's throw that out the window. I'm just going to be me and be a wacky, daft, nonsense creator.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely love that. And I, for reference, was a theatre kid. I did drama. I went to drama school. I did drama GCSE. I wanted to be an actor for a long time, and then I decided that actually I preferred using my voice, and that's why I went into radio. So there's two completely different sides of this conversation here, which is why I think this is going to be a good episode. So let's get into it. I've decided this is an episode of Table Fables because I figured we will probably go into some examples of like characters and things that we've played before and moments that we love. But for anyone new to D&D, because as I say, this is the D&D podcast for everyone. We want to welcome in people who are just getting into the game. How do you define roleplay? Like in your brain, what makes up roleplay for you?
What makes up roleplay?
Yeah, like when I say, "Oh, we're going to do some role play," what's the thing that comes to your mind?
So the main thought is collaborative storytelling. That's the largest point that comes to my brain. Simply because that's what role playing is, especially in a D&D setting. I mean, you can role play with yourself. You can do that. You can have conversations with yourself if you like. But it's a lot more enjoyable.
I do that all the time.
I mean, yeah. I think most people do. Especially when you're walking around and testing a character voice. That happens a lot.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. Okay, so I love that because I've always said, whenever anyone asks me what D&D is, I say it's a collaborative storytelling game, and game is kind of like the last word that comes out of my mouth because I think it's more than that. So for me, like, if I say role play to someone, I think they go, "Oh, what, like in the bedroom?" And I'm like, "No, like role play, like you get into character, like acting." And then I always think that scares people away because I don't want to act. Like that's weird. And I think that
when you're acting with someone else, it's a lot more comfortable, isn't it? Really, I think.
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't think acting's the right word either, because when I say acting, I think of like two people seeing each other, being with each other, standing and running through scenes. And like in a way, D&D was that before March 2020 because we were all playing around the table if we could. But currently now we're all online and it's a bit strange. And like, I remember when I first started running D&D, specifically like my first maybe month or two of running games and playing in games, I had that kind of weird feeling of like, I don't know if this is right, and I don't know if this feels silly. And I think everybody has that, and you get over that kind of silly feeling eventually when you get into it. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right, collaborative storytelling for sure. And then if there was another word that was better than acting, I'd use that, but I can't think of one.
I don't think there really is. Not at the moment. But no, I just remember like the first times we ever did roleplay with D&D, because that was the example that we used all together. We never did voices, right? At all. None of us did voices. We did a small one shot initially.
Yep.
The main thing that I remember from that is I remember making a daisy chain weapon, which I found was ludicrous with a spiritual weapon.
Yes, that was, I'm pretty sure, I think I found the notes of this one shot the other day when I was cleaning out my old iMac, and it was on a boat, and the boat crashed, and there was like, it was on a tropical island, and I was a druid with a wolf. I remember that.
Very vague memories. I feel like it didn't stick as much of an impression because it was more such a new, raw experience. Yeah. And it's like, you're just kind of floundering a bit going, where are we going with this? What are we doing
What do
here?
I do? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked before on the show about what I like to call the eureka moment, when players kind of finally work out what D&D is, because there is kind of that, like, I don't really get it until you get it, and it just kind of clicks, and it could be a session, it could be 5 sessions, but eventually it clicks. And I don't think roleplay really comes into the equation until after that point, because you need to kind of work out what D&D is as a medium, but also what it is for you as well.
And what points you enjoy more so.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's the thing, like people talk about how they have role play heavy groups and like low role play. And like I know people who are currently playing things like what's the adventure Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is very map based, and it's a dungeon crawl, and there can be not a lot of story, and so the role play kind of isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look at like our group, and I know for a fact that if I tried to run Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I mean I'd put story in it anyway, but I know that
we would force you into roleplay heavy moments.
Exactly.
I would try to my darnest damn.
every single creature. Like, can you understand common? Can we have a conversation?
Okay, well,
Which
maybe if it's,
great.
foaming at the mouth, ready to murder me, not as much. But
Yeah, you just ask it if it wants to parlay. It'll be fine.
Sure. Brom would.
Yeah, Brom absolutely. Yeah, but Brom's a sweet, innocent soul who wants to talk to everyone. But yeah, so like I think it's one of those, and I hate saying this because I say it all the time and it feels like a cop-out answer, but I think it's one of those things that differs from group to group, but at the very least, every group has at the least a small amount of it. So
I think it's the main push as well, isn't it? Like, it is... So you can go through the mechanics, right? And they are enjoyable, but I think, for me personally, I'm hoping for others too, that the main enjoyment is character development, it is roleplay, it is conversing with your friends' characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing what they pull out of the hat, because sometimes you really don't know.
Yeah, and it's like when I did a lot of research into Dragon Heist before I ran that, and bearing in mind I knew that you guys were a party that would really get into the roleplay side of like living in a city and running a tavern and things, I was seeing posts on Reddit of people being like, my players aren't interested in the tavern, they don't want to play tavern sim, they don't want to go shopping, and I'm like, why? Like, that's not an issue that we have, like, we love that stuff. So, there are groups out there that aren't into it, but I you can't have D&D without it, and so at some point I think you kind of have to just go, okay, how do I make it so that I enjoy those parts of D&D?
Yeah.
What is your favourite part about it for you?
About roleplay in general?
Yeah, like what's
That's a
when
big
you
question.
There is a big question. Let me dumb it down. So when you sit down and you play D&D and you're going to have a roleplay heavy session, so like think back to Dragon Heist and you're like, okay, I know we need to go and talk to people and like learn things and investigate leads. What was the part of those encounters, because roleplay is encountering, what were your favourite bits?
I think the favourite bits were probably the ones that were a bit more... So there's the Xanath scenes that obviously Joe did were absolutely amazing to witness, but I felt like I was a little more there in the sense that Brom's in his pocket, I'm about to die, I can't do anything, this is incredibly infuriating, but I'm loving this at the same time.
Yeah, because you're very good at not metaing as well. You're very good at like enjoying the role play and watching other people have their scenes, and if you're not there, you forget that knowledge as your character. You're very impeccable at that, which I appreciate as a DM. It makes my life a lot easier.
I want to have that moment later where Brom has the surprise, and Brom's like, "What's going on?" It's like, wait, you died, Carrie? Carrie, what do you mean? Are you okay? Do you need something? And then Brom went out and tried to get him something. I had no money at the time, bear in mind. I had like 5 silver to my name, so I got him a salmon.
Yeah, you made him a really nice dinner. You got the cook to make him a real good meal.
I just asked Harry what his favourite food was or favourite fish was, and then just went and got it.
See, this is the thing. This was a really nice example of like where roleplay drove the story, because you found out that Cowrie used to fish with his brother, and in the Dead of Brimbury, and you found out that he liked salmon, so you went and bought one, went to speak to your chef, got him to cook a meal, and then we had a whole roleplay scene of everyone sat around the dinner table eating this lovely meal that you had effectively prepared for Cowrie to make him feel a bit better. And like, we wouldn't have had that if the party didn't embrace those roleplay moments.
Yeah.
So it definitely like adds a whole other element to D&D. And I suppose like as we're talking, I kind of think we should maybe break it down a little bit more, because like that's a really nice player driven roleplay moment, and I am blessed as a DM to have characters that will go out and create those moments for themselves. I never have to like nudge you in the direction to do stuff on your own. You will just kind of do it. All of you do. You're very good at that.
I think
But-
if you left us to our own devices, we would definitely make a day of roleplay.
Oh, dude, we've had sessions like that.
Where you had to do nothing.
Yeah, we've had sessions where I've sat down like in the week before and I've prepped everything that I've needed, like, and I've done full on like sheets and sheets of A4 prep in case you go in any direction, because I you know, we're at that point in the campaign, and then we've sat down and I've not used any of it because you go shopping. And I love that stuff. I so enjoy watching that. But like, that's a really great character-driven, player-driven roleplay moment. But there are roleplay encounters with NPCs where, let's say, maybe you've got to go and convince the Baron to allow you to go and clear out the mines of all of the zombies so that you can go down there and get something, or help the dwarves. Like, you've got to go and convince someone to do that. That's not a combat encounter, it's a roleplay encounter. And it's always kind of tricky if as a DM you're like doing the Baron and you've got a voice and you've got characteristics and you've got the facial expressions and things, and the players are just like, yeah, I'm going to tell him this.
Mm-hmm.
So those are other aspects of roleplay in the game as well, rather than just like the storytelling. But I think maybe we can talk about like I want to talk about encounter building on a Tinker's Toolbox episode at some point anyway, so we can probably talk about roleplay encounter building another day. But
yeah. I don't know how much prep you have how much prep you have in those roleplay encounters. Like, how much of it? I imagine a lot of it is just ad lib.
But me personally,
yeah,
it depends. So with encounters with very important NPCs, if I know that they have like a certain bit of like a certain plot key or a certain bit of information that I want them to say, or if I know that you're going to them with something in mind, like let's say when you went to meet one of the merchant princes in Tomb of Annihilation recently, I knew that you were going to try and ask them a lot of questions about how Port Naranzai works and a lot about Chult and like that kind of stuff. So I had prepped things that they knew about those specific subjects so that I had them ready for them to say, but I don't script anything. Like, I'll have written down, like, you know, Merchant Prince Jessamine knows X, and will tell the characters X if they say Y, and things like that. And then, because I know enough about them, and I have the NPC's background and their flaws and ideals and things, I know how they'll reply to the questions that you present.
Yeah.
And that's a good point as well. I think that kind of leads into the fact that for me, I run a lot of those encounters as kind of improvisational scenes. Like, I know what the scene looks like, and I know how the characters and the NPCs act, but the dialogue and then what happens is all improv.
Which makes it a lot more, I think, fluid and natural. Because if you try to script it, you are not going to get very far, I think.
Yeah. There are times when I've scripted certain, like, phrases or paragraphs or things, like when you met what's his name, the half gold harbour master at Port Naranzai.
Right. I mean, those, like, you know, those moments are going to come up, right? You know they're going to have either this introduction or this, here is XY exposition,
the plot hook.
Yeah. here's the main thing I need to tell you. Everything else is fluff currently.
yeah the skill comes in making those things fluidly move into each other. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and so like for a DM point of view, for me, getting into because there's so many NPCs that you have to roleplay, I always lay out like a paragraph or maybe two, at most 3, because I don't want to have a lot to read if I have to quickly go and reread it in the session. And then I have things like flaws, ideals, bonds, those personality traits, have those and have their like key wants and fears. So let's say, what's a character that you already know about, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. Let's say in Dragon Heist, you are about to meet the Blackstaff. I'll have her ideals, bonds, flaws, and all of that, and then I'll have written down something like, you know, wants to find an apprentice, or wants to deal with Manchun, or knows that the Zentarum is run by a higher up but doesn't know who it is. You know, things like that. And maybe like disposition or a note on what their voice is like, something like that. and
Yeah.
then the rest will. And when you play those characters as a DM for a long time, like the Black Staff was a key NPC that kept coming up, it's a lot easier to just jump back into them when the players go,
Because
oh,
you've
I'm
been
going to go see
playing
them.
them a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's harder with, like, now that I've changed over to TOA, it's harder to to jump from character to character.
You haven't found your nice, like, comfy characters yet, where you're like, okay, this is an easy one to do.
Oh yes, let me relax back into my big armchair. I know this character like the back of my hand. Yeah, there's a few of those we need to get to. There are a few that I've introduced that are different enough from other NPCs. Like, they're all quite unique at the moment. The trick comes to when they're all quite similar. Like, Blackstaff and Lyriel had a lot of similar wants and quirks, even though they were very different people because they were working together. So, like, that at first that was difficult, and then over time it became easier.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, you can definitely see the contrast in them, especially in conversations. Like, the Blackstaff usually let Lyriel lead conversations if they were both in the same room, and then only stepped in when she wanted to get something across, which was. It was nice interactions, and I'm very impressed with you for being able to do that as well in a roleplay scenario where there's several characters that all have their points and desires and want to push them forward.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Heist was a big like a big learning curve for running. I mean, Dragon Heist was a big learning curve anyway. I learned a lot from running that campaign, but it taught me a lot in not only scaling adventures and extending written stuff, but in how to run things like factions and wants and desires. And I think, I mean, this is kind of the advanced end of the discussion, I think, but when you've got key NPCs and they have similar or differing wants and they're all in the same room and you have to jump around them, the best thing to do is to make them distinct enough that the PCs know who's talking, and that in itself will kind of drive the discussion and the note-taking and the messages coming across. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like,
yes, it does.
One of the big scenes that James and I did at the end of Dragon Heist to link into the rest of the branching campaigns, the 3 or 4 that we're now stretching out from Dragon Heist, was to have the big meeting of the Lord's Alliance and to have lots of different key players in a big meeting. And we were building up to that. Like, we were talking about that scene and that set piece for how long will it have been? It must have at least been a year. Like, and then that's no exaggeration. Like, we were talking about it for so long.
This was the culmination of everyone's efforts, essentially.
Yeah, like, it was the big. That was like the Avengers assembling. That was the big moment where all of the stories linked together. And so we said to each other, and this actually comes into it, I suppose, because we were saying, like, how are we going to run all these NPCs and, like, how are we going to split them up? So we made a big list of all the NPCs that were there. So you had, like, Lyriel, the Blackstaff, Elminster. You had people like Davil Starsong, who was one of the heads of the Zentarum, who'd become a big player for the characters. You had the Harpers. You had the Raven Guard from Baldur's Gate, people from Neverwinter, like all of the Mithril Hall, like all these big players who are part of Lord's Alliance. And so I said, well, look, I've been running all of these NPCs in my campaign. You've been running all of those ones, so you take them and I'll take these. We know there's these different topics, so let's break the conversation of the meeting into those 3 different things. And I'll lead this one as this person, you lead that one as that person. And then instead of scripting like what we're going to say to each other, like, we had scripts of things that needed to be said, like I've said before, but instead of saying, like, I'll say this and then you chime in with this, it was, okay, we know enough about our own campaigns to deal with any, like, random thing that comes up in this meeting. We've been living in these worlds for long enough.
Yeah.
So I'll do my part, and at any point, if you have a character that has something to say about that, interrupt me and chime in.
Amazing.
And we were, like, I even remember sitting on a call for James for like 2.5 hours, and I was like talking about different ways to do this, and I said, I don't think we script this, I think we improv it, because
I adore that, though. I absolutely love that so much, that you essentially had the main points and then improved a lot of it.
Like, I knew that Lyriel was going to basically feed you all the information to get you off into TOA, and James had all of his information to get you off into the story for Tiamat. I forget what is it? It's hang on, I'm looking at my books. Tyranny of Dragons. You know, and the second half of that two adventure
When
campaign.
it's all like, here's all the campaigns that you might go on.
Yeah,
It's like, oh
and, like,
god.
I knew that Elminster was going to come in and be like, well, I've been called back to look into this problem with the weave, so I'll be dealing with that. But because I know stuff about both being DMs means that I know stuff about the campaign that I'm going to play in for James, and James knows bits about mine, but not everything. So I knew that he had things that his NPCs were going to worry about, or have things to say about.
I mean,
so
all these NPCs are in different areas, aren't they? So they're going to have, if something's close by, it's going to be a priority rather than...
Yeah, exactly. So, like, when Lyriel stepped up in the meeting and said, okay, let's talk about the most pressing matter, which is the Death Curse, I kind of knew that James had something in mind, but I didn't know what it was. So then he jumped up as Olding Ravenguard and just said, well, hang on a minute, that's not the biggest issue. It's only the biggest issue to you because you've got the Dragon Ward and dragons can't attack your city. I think we should talk about the rising dragon cultists. And, like, I was, as Lyriel, she's a bit like, oh, for God's sake, like, caught off guard because it's taken her out of her flow, which takes me out of my flow, which means the improv sort of continues. So that was the best way to do that. I mean, if I was one person, if it was just me and not James, I might script certain interactions and then have the rest flow. But with 2DMs, it worked really well that way, I feel.
I mean, you bounce off each other, which is so good. And I think that's a key part of roleplay, to be honest, being able to just take anything that's thrown at you and just run with it in a different direction, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, we haven't talked. We'll do like the main tips for getting into it for characters and for DMs and PCs in a bit towards the end, I think, of the episode. But there is that big thing of yes and, which is a key rule in improvisation. You always say yes and, you don't say no. You don't stop the thought or the opportunity that another player is bringing up for you. So, like, in an improv class, if you came to me and you said, hi, Mr. Apple Grocer, I'd like to buy some apples, it would be wrong of me to say, well, hang on, I'm not an apple grocer. But if I follow the yes and rule, I say, yes, and would you also like some pineapples? Because I'm a green grocer. So you're always building, you're not taking away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. There is a really, really helpful thing in just roleplay in general. And it doesn't actually come into it a lot, but I think we didn't use it as much as I would have thought we would have in Dragon Heist, but it is integral to roleplay and roleplay in D&D, and that's a really good set of dice that you use to make all of your charisma-based checks with. Wesley, you could get some really nice D&D dice by heading to the Dice Dungeon and using the code We Speak Common to get 10% off. Did you know that?
Oh, could I, Ben? I definitely will do that. I have done this already in the past. I have been
good man.
I've been looking at some other dice, but then
what sets do you have?
Well, I think the Frozen one currently.
Yeah.
Of course I do. It's blue and purple and black and metal. And it's nice to feel in my hands. It's weightiness as I throw
power.
it, and it rolls low numbers. But that's me. That's not the dice. So
yeah, I had an issue in our Descent campaign last night. I have one of the Burning Hands set, which I use for Descent into Avernus because hell and fire and burning. And the luck was not with me yesterday. I rolled poorly. But then again, I know that James and Sam and Ray will tell you that they rolled really, really well in a lot of their checks with their Dice Dungeon dice. So, hey, you win some, you lose some. That's kind of the point in rolling dice.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got some really, really nice resin dice too, and a wonderful new thing, the Bag of Fates, I believe they've called it. So you can pay a set amount and you get a random set of dice between two varying values. So that's a good fun sort of, I don't know what dice I want to buy, I'll grab a Bag of Fates. But yeah, if you use the link in the description, or if you go to wespeakcommon.com, you'll get a whole list of all of our links. There's a link there that automatically applies the discount when you get to checkout. The other really good one, which is brand new, and I'm actually super, super excited about. We have just partnered up with a lovely service called Describe. Describe is spelled DSCRYB because they're cool. and they don't conform.
It's a really good
to
spelling,
norms.
you know. It's fancy.
Yeah. So if you are if you're like listening to this thinking, yeah, I want those tips for roleplay, and you're thinking, oh, I can't just flow as my NPCs, like I can't improvise. What are you saying, Ben? Well, then head over to Describe, because they do all of the hard work for you in writing out the box text. So let's say you pick up Descent into Avernus and you get that lovely box text all laid out for you, but you think, no, I want to run my own adventure. Well, where are you going to get your box text? Describe is where you're going to get your box text. So basically, let's say, Wes, you wanted to use astral projection on your players. This is my go-to example because I love the astral projection description that Describe has written for us. You go onto their website, you type in astral projection under spells, and it gives you a full description of what your PCs would see if that spell was cast on them.
Wow.
And it's chef's kisses, Wes. It's beautiful.
I wish. Is there any chance we could hear any of it? Or is that...
Do you want me to go grab one?
I think you should go grab one. I feel like you
Okay.
need to give an example.
Okay, let me pull up. Do you want me to do astral projection? Because I've.
I mean, you've just brought it up, so now I'm curious.
Okay,
So
okay. Astral.
that's the one
projection.
you have to go for.
So you head over to the website, you type in astral projection, you hit enter or you hit go, and you have to spell astral projection right, Wesley. Otherwise, it doesn't come up. I think I might have it. I think I might have it saved actually, because I did look it up the other day. Hang on, let me go to my previous searches. Where is it?
It's got to be right there, Ben. Like, really, you've got me like on the edge of my seat, waiting for this description where I'm going to be blown away.
You've put me on the spot now.
Yes, I have. I mean, okay. I mean, I had to change, the tables, Ben, onto you.
You had to turn the tables, did you?
Exactly. I did. It was needed because I don't do things like this, Ben.
No, I know. I actually think I can't find it because it's because I'm not logged in. That's why. That's why. There you go.
Professional podcast. Very prepared. I've just put Ben on the spot, so just blame me for this one, everybody.
It's fine. It's only their first ad read. It wouldn't be the D&D podcast for everyone if I didn't get it wrong.
You'll get there. Are you anywhere close?
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so this is the box text written for astral projection. You blink your eyes closed, and when you open them, a swirling silver vortex floats above your prone form. You rise to stand, but you find yourself drifting upward toward the whirlpool of metallic fog propelled just by the thought of movement. You have a moment to look back at your body, lying as if sleeping, and the semi-transparent cord of silvery light that runs from you to it. But then the pull of the vortex sucks you in, propelling you beyond your body and the world to someplace else.
I adore the imagery that provokes.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
You describe that. That's really good.
It's so good. So you can go and check out Describe right now, dscryb.com. Have a little search, have a look. They've got over 14,000 scenes, and they are adding all the time, and they are bringing out collections soon too. If you want access to those, they have a subscription-based program, so you can subscribe for different tier levels per month, or you can do it all in 1 year. But the best part is, if you use the code COMMON on checkout, you get 10% off your subscription every single month. So you get that 10% off each time you pay. It's not a one-time thing. There's also a link to that in the description below and on WeSpeakCommon.com, so go check it out. And maybe next week I'll read you another one. We'll see. We'll just have to wait and see what happens next week, Wes.
Okay. I feel like I had to put you on the spot. You have to show it a bit more, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm making you feel uncomfortable being on the podcast. You've got to make me feel uncomfortable
exactly.
Too. But yeah, really, really excited to be working with those guys. So go and check them out. Okay, so let's do tips. Let's do the actual tangible tips for getting into roleplay, whether you're a DM or a player. And I want to go like fully back to basics. So like honestly, like let's imagine the idea of roleplay terrifies you, Wesley. What are your tips to help people who don't know what to do?
Okay, tips I would say for certain is, you brought this up earlier, but having your short-term goals and your long-term goals in front of you is the best idea in the world. Like what fears you have as well, just to have those directly in front of you so you can refer to them if there's something that might lead you in a way. Maybe your character is more they like getting money, that's a general one. They might be a bit vain, It might not just be, gold, it might be jewelry, it might be other things. In Team of Annihilation, my character is obviously very obsessed with their looks and their clothing. And if they were to see a jewelry area, of course they would have to go over there and look at the beautiful amulets that I will buy with my money. And my character's becoming very quickly very poor. Just as a note. So it's just like, oh, look, there's something interesting that I can indulge in over here. I will go take that.
I'll go buy it. Yeah, that's a really good one. So like my Hexblade Paladin in Descent, who is lawful evil, he has an ongoing fear that he's going to be forgotten. He wants to leave a legacy, which propels him to do things at any cost to make sure that he is building a name for himself. And so like, another one of his fears is that he's afraid that because of that, he's afraid he's going to die without having left that legacy in place. So he will always have one spell slot to use whatever spell he needs to get out of a situation that's life-threatening, even if it means leaving his friends behind, because he's a bad boy.
He's an evil boy. We all know.
Yeah, he is evil. And if you are thinking, well, I'm not very good at characterization, like how do I come up with those things? The best place to start is your 4 key cornerstones that you build as you build your PC. So your ideals, flaws, personality traits, and bonds. You can get those from your background, and there are so many backgrounds now. Not only in the player's handbook, but like in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, in the adventures they offer extra backgrounds. So like Curse of Strahd has one, TOA has one, TOA has 2 in them, anthropologist and archaeologist. So check those out and use those suggested ones, but when you get more comfortable with your character, you can build on those and change them out with your DM's help. So they're a really good place to start.
Yeah, they're a good place to start. And don't be afraid if you think something that comes up that you think your character might do, don't be afraid to just say, can I do this, to your DM? Because at the end of the day, that's what role-playing is. That's what D&D is. So can I go do this thing? And most of the time, your party will be like, sure, yeah, let's go do that. And they might come along to do whatever you saw. In a town or a place where you just go, okay, there's a bakery over there, your character. Or the DM's describing food, as you do, Ben. You do like describing
I'm a foodie.
the smells that go through the city. You're like, well, okay, well, now we have to go there, clearly, because it's the morning.
Yeah.
My character's hungry. We're going to go interact with that baker and force you to do some roleplay as the DM.
Yeah, so like I've had characters who say to me, I've had players who say to me, that they want to do more role play as their characters, and like what's a good tip. And I always say, when you go into a session, have one of your goals as a player to have one non-story role play encounter. So like one non-hook based encounter. So if your DM is describing the fact that you're walking through Waterdeep and you can smell the fresh bakery opening its doors in the morning and the fresh smell of croissants, then annoy your DM, because they definitely haven't planned for you to go to that bakery, and say, oh, I'd love to, I want to go and buy some croissants. And hopefully your DM will take the opportunity to say, yes, you walk into this lovely bakery that's got pastry all over the walls that I am making up as we go, and you see the young baker's son behind the counter. His name is Thomas, and he is putting out fresh croissants, and he says, oh, hello sir, would you like a croissant? And then you role play in your voice and you buy a croissant for 1 silver.
Exactly. And it's just a lovely small interaction that you can have. And if you do enough of those, you're going to get so much more into character.
Because now you know your character loves croissants.
Exactly. First few sessions are always a little rough with trying to flesh out a character, trying to feel them out a bit and be like, okay, where are we going with this? What direction do I want to go in? And a lot of the time, the first few sessions can be like save or suck for a character, whether someone adores them or doesn't like them as much.
I find as well, like in those first sessions, you get like, have we got 6 people in our group, or maybe 7? And it's the first couple of sessions are everybody saying, here's my unique thing, and they go, yes, and here's my unique thing. And you all kind of just have this weird hodgepodge of like trying to get in your character traits so everyone knows something about you. Which is great fun.
I think I was just going around questioning people, really.
Yeah.
I think also just ask your party members questions if your
Yeah, that
character's
was going to be
curious.
my next tip.
Just throw questions at them. All right. How are you going to learn about your party members if you don't ask questions? Like in daily life, we ask like questions so much to one another to get to know each other. So it'd be the exact same with yours. And if you're traveling with them for however long, or stuck on a boat for how many weeks? 3 weeks was it?
You were on there for 25 days, 26 days. So yeah.
But it was a long time, and then we got to pester each other with questions. Of course, we couldn't do the entire session as much as I would like to.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, if you're struggling to get in your character's head as a player or as a DM into NPC's head, you kind of just have to sit and imagine yourself in that position instead of being like, oh, what would X character do when they have all of this background stuff? Instead, go, well, what would I do? Like me as Ben, if I was on a boat with people I've only just met, what would I do? Well, I'd probably try and talk to the one that looks the most friendly, because that's like, I'm intimidated by big scary people. So I'm going to go and talk to them. So then say, okay, I'm going to go and talk to them, but instead of being Ben, I'm going to pretend that I have this trait, which might be that you're extravagant, like your character was. So you might be like, right, okay, so I'm going to say, oh, my character, insert name here, walks over and sort of grabs his cape up and flourishes it and sits down so that he's not sitting on his cape, and he says, so what do you do? What's your name? What's your favorite thing? Like, just one of those things. Like, just ask a question, and that will prompt your other player to do the same as what you've just done.
Yeah.
And bring out a character bit of info or a bit of trait that they might then lean on in the future.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just don't be afraid to do that. Plus, like little actions. In the first session of 2A, just because it's so recent, it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I decided Nevin would bring on some alcohol because he likes to drink a lot and indulge a lot, and he just tried to essentially force this into everyone's hands. He has he has 2 goblets that he takes around with him in case someone wants to share a drink with him. That's just how bad this character is. You just, with that small interaction and him just trying to force it on other people. A, you know he's going to be drinking a lot. B,
Yep.
you know he likes to drink with others a lot and will try and bring you into whatever activity he's doing.
Here, have a glass. It's that peer pressure your mum told you about.
Exactly. It's like, yes, here, look, I have one right here. You want to join? No? Want to read a book? Oh, right. I guess that's interesting.
How unsociable. Yeah, and I think that leads into another really good tip, which is to have a cornerstone. So as we said, like, you've got those key things, those fears, those pawns, those personality traits, but have something like a quirk. So maybe your character does always have a goblet ready to give someone a drink. Maybe they have tarot cards and they always offer to read someone's future. That came up in our TOA game. Maybe they've got something unique, like they have a certain voice. Like, maybe you're a lizard folk, so he elongates all of his S's, which is going to sound awful on the podcast because I hate how the S sounds through headphones, but I've done it now. So something that kind of you can lean on. And the voice one, I think, leaning into the next tip, which we'll get to in a second with finding a voice, helps you to have something that you can always, like, something, it doesn't have to be subtle, it can be something really obvious like the S thing, but you can always lean on it, which will always bring you back in your mind into that character.
Yes. I'm going to say this now. In the Curse of Strahd one, I really do regret not going for a voice. I really do. Because it has become a very easy crutch for me to get into character. Like, even on days when, I'm not feeling the greatest, but I've got a D&D session. Like, as soon as I start with that character voice, everything else is gone. I'm perfectly in character. I know what I'm doing, and it just gets you in the mood for roleplay.
Yeah, for sure. And like with voices, so when I said at the start of the episode, I was a drama kid. I did acting school and stuff. I hated doing accents. Like, I can never get accents. And we always have this joke. Joe had this joke that I would always, like, the accents in my campaigns would range from Norfolk to Scotland and nothing in between. Maybe a little bit of Mancunian here and there, and that would be it. But over time I've learnt to do more. But the one tip I can give if you're struggling to find a voice is start off small and find like that one thing. So maybe it's the S's, or maybe there's an accent that you can do. Like maybe you can do a good Southern accent. Find something that you're comfortable with doing already. Play around with it, but give yourself a springboard phrase. So a springboard phrase is something that you can say really well in the voice that you're doing. So for my character Klaath, it was, do you know who I am? And he would say that because he was very vain and he wanted everyone to know who he was so he could leave that legacy behind. He would say that whenever he found a point where he was like, oh, you don't know who I am? Do you know who I am? And for me, when I know I'm going into a session as Klaath, before the call starts, I just sit there and I go, do you know who I am? In his voice over and over again.
This, by the way. We can see Ben doing this.
Oh, yeah. I just mute my microphone and I just sit there like, do you know who I am? And I just do it over and over again until I'm comfortable, and then I can just talk as Klaath. There's nothing wrong with that. Halfway through the session, I'll be like, hang on a minute.
Absolutely.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah. Especially when it's such a different voice from your own.
Yeah.
With a lot of voices that I've learned, I've just watched YouTube videos of certain like accent videos or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And just taken a phrase that has the most... It's the phrase that I think is the best one in my head, right? And I'm like, okay, that's got a really good accent and flow to it. I want to copy that sentence. And then I will mimic it over and over and over until I get to a point. Sometimes I record myself, sometimes I listen to myself. So for instance, there was one where I did a more like deeper accent, like I can't remember the whole phrase because it's been so long, but it's like Jormungandr, the world serpent. Like that's. So this is just like on a video.
Such a roll of like consonants
on the
and
world,
vowels.
Yeah.
It's
I
remember
such a
that
large one.
Joe had his Norse setting campaign, and James and I were recreating characters that were already from there. And I was like, how do I do this kind of Icelandic accent? I can't even remember it now because it's been so long. But
I loved your accents in that campaign.
I remember when you first heard them, you had a really good reaction. I was like, yes, I've done something right. Yeah, so I think voices are one of the things that are the most intimidating because you don't want to look silly. Like there's this thing like I don't want to look silly, and Craig in our campaign, they're more in their shell about roleplay, I think, and recently they've come out a lot, and they said to me before we went into TOA, oh, I'm going to try doing a different voice, but I'm worried that I might fall in and out of it. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, if you're really worried, like say, oh, I'm going to practice a voice and it might come and go. And I always say like, that's absolutely fine because we as players will just bounce off however you say something and eventually something will stick. And now they've got this really cool accent and it's synonymous with their character.
It's really good. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're around a table with friends. So no one's going to judge you for it. They're going to be happy that you're giving it a go. Right, okay, admittedly, some people may take the mick out of you when I did a French accent, but hey.
Yeah, but it's banter, it's fine.
It's absolutely fine. I adored it. And I also annoyed everyone, especially Joe, with that one.
It gets to the point as well, like, once you get comfortable with doing voices and being silly in front of your regular group, and I guess it's different if you're playing in, like, Adventurers League. I don't even know if Adventurers League is happening right now because of the pandemic. Like, I don't know if they do online Adventurers League. They might do. We don't really have it here in the UK. But, like, if you're with people that you know and you're comfortable with, it just gets easier and easier. And it's got to the point now, I mean, I've been... fine, take it for granted, I've been DMing for a long time now, but it's got to the point where I can sit down with a group of people I've never played before and there's no inhibitions. Like I just go for voices, I do not care, and that makes it so much easier for me to get into my comfort zone DMing for different people, but it also makes it more comfortable for everyone else to feel like, oh, it's okay, we can do silly voices and things. And as the DM, like I get to do really silly voices. I get to be goblins and things. Like I get to be really weird with it. So if you're thinking, oh, no one else does voices, don't worry about it. Like the more people do it, the more everyone will feel like, oh, okay, we can be a little bit silly here.
I mean, we've brought everyone into doing voices really in our group. I think it was just a couple of us to begin with, and then we've slowly brought everyone else in.
Yeah.
So come join the voice crew.
Yeah, and like I find that if I'm doing something that's really monotonous, like I do a lot of driving, so if I'm out and about on the road and I'm building a character or an NPC in my brain, I'll often just start like talking to myself in the voice to find it, and I'll change it and get comfortable with it. And once I'm comfortable with it, that's when it comes out at the table. You know, it doesn't have to come out as a work in progress if you don't want it to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've just practiced by myself loads of times. Just when you're doing something that doesn't take too much attention, you just talk aloud. You look insane, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we play D&D. We often look insane anyway.
We're already crazy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a load of tips there. Is there anything else that stands out that you think is something that like really helps me build characters or get into those characters?
Building characters, I think, is more so obviously the goals and everything, but just take a concept that you find fun, that you want to enjoy, and run with it. I think a lot of people also mention about role playing in the regard to trying to make sure that you are collaborating with your team. Make sure you're not too off one way. I know there's some real like fun concepts, like you want to be this evil character, but just also make sure that it does flow with the group, because you don't want such a disparity that you aren't having fun together. That's just one note I would have when you are creating those characters and you are going way over to the other side, but hopefully your DM will discuss that with you.
Yeah, like when Claaf was in Descent, like we started, Claaf and your character Drell really hated each other.
Claaf murdered my character.
Yeah, with a
to
final.
point this out, this was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't even just dislike; it was pure hatred. We really didn't get on, and there was only one other player in the group, and like a key focal point for a lot of the first sessions. I think at least until like session 15 to 20, we were. The dynamic was that we were arguing, and Yeruvi and the other character was trying to break it up and trying to get us to work together, because we were kind of all pulled into the same plot. And that's a great dynamic if you're comfortable. Like I remember messaging you so many times and be like, have I gone too far?
We both message each other. It's like, are you okay? Did we do okay?
Just letting you know in real life I love you. Yeah, so like that can be fun too, but yeah, it's definitely kind of make sure it's a safe space and you've agreed that that's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
God, I remember the session before I fireballed you. I was like, just so you know that I might kill you next session. Are you okay with that? Do you want me to change that? And you were like, no, it's fine.
And then there's me like, go for it. You 100% run with it, Ben. You murder the hell out of me.
And hey, now we're best friends.
Yay! Although I'm pretty sure Clath will try and murder me later again, but there you go.
No.
Poor Drell.
I mean, it sounds like that's a big springboard from one side to the other, but it was all around development. I mean, you lost your memories, and I was like, at one point, Clath was full on considering, like, do we not help you give your memories back? Because I've had a fresh start and now we're getting on.
It was really interesting playing a character with no memories, though. It's really interesting because they're such a blank slate that they believed everything. I had to go to a completely different page on my notes and was like, okay, everything they tell me I think is true. And they just continue to write everything you've said.
Yeah. You have to start again.
Exactly. And Claath obviously said a lot of things like, when I tell you to jump, you jump, and along those lines.
Yeah, because you were such an empty kind of I don't know what you didn't even know what danger was, because we were in such a weird place that we had to be like, okay, if I tell you to run, you got to run, and if I tell you to use that spell, use that spell, and this
get us into trouble a little bit, because I think you said cast a spell at some point, and my character didn't know what to do and just cast a random fog on the area.
Yeah, and I was like,
I think Clath was like, wait, what have you done?
Yeah, but that's a really this is the point. Like, if you get into role playing, if you get into know your character, when you get into these situations where like for you it was all taken away, you then have so much freedom to just really go with it and be something else. And though that situation, you losing your memory, if we weren't into roleplay, would have just been this mechanical thing.
Exactly.
and wouldn't have really meant anything. But because you role played it, it became this whole big part of the story and like a separate arc of that campaign. So,
but it's also the arc that made Claath and Drell reunite, essentially, as well.
Yeah, it literally gave us a fresh start.
Mm-hmm. Which was incredibly interesting, and obviously because this was a new like blank slate, their main fear when it was coming to the end to them essentially curing Drell, they were worried that because they'd heard so much about the old Drell, and they would say, well, they sound like a really bad person. Are you sure you want this person back? Because I'm here and I don't know if I'll still be here if I get my memories back. It was a very interesting inner monologue.
It was something I've never even thought of as not a plot point, but like an interesting dilemma to give your player characters, because you'd learnt to be this new person for the course of like 10 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the person you are going away and losing those 10 sessions became a real quandary, and that's just something that wouldn't have happened if we didn't role play it all. Yeah,
it was a very interesting moral dilemma to explore. And your characters eventually convinced them to leave. They gave you hugs and said,
it was
I
emotional.
hope the new Drell is okay. I hope he doesn't hurt you.
And luckily, you weren't just the old Drell. You were like a combination of the two. So
exactly,
we all of our characters grew and developed from that. So, and it all came from roleplay.
Still evil. No, I think Claath did grow from that. I think he had a slightly different perspective on Drell from that.
Yeah, he's certainly grown, but he's now achieved his goal of freeing his almighty overlord and is kind of slipping back into his old ways.
His demon daddy.
His demon daddy. Yeah, loves his demon daddy. And there's some interesting stuff that's going to come out of that because you're stuck in a contract with him.
Yay!
I cannot wait. I think we've got like a fortnight until we play the next session, but it's going to be so good.
It's going to be really good. It's going to be really exciting.
Okay, so look, we're coming to time here, but I think the takeaways are: don't be afraid to give it a go and just have fun. And that's such a cop-out answer, but there are some tips in there.
Oh, it is. But you're trying to like condense so much into like a small little sentence, aren't you? So
So D&D roleplay, I think the best way to sum it up is you will get as much out of it as you put in, and if you really put the effort in and you just go for it, you will make your games so much more interesting and fuller. That's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. I would say main takeaways: get your goals on the table. Don't be scared to say "can I?" And when you're doing that, don't be scared to develop your character on the way. Like your character will develop. Like everyone changes their opinions on things. Your character can do that too if you want.
Yeah.
And just go with it and have fun with your roleplay party and make sure you bloody talk to them, right? you take them off into that corner and you ask them the deepest of darkest questions. You get their backstory, damn it.
Yeah. The next time you play D&D, I want you to force your DM and party to roleplay a dinner scene.
Yes.
Well, maybe don't force it, but you know what I mean. Okay, wonderful. Wesley, thank you so much. This was such a good conversation, and I hope that it has alleviated your fear of being on the podcast and you'll come back one day.
I suppose a little. I think it was just more of a conversation, and I hope people enjoy the the topic. I think it's a really interesting one, so...
Yeah, and look, it's kind of side by side, much like how people have to get over their fear of role playing. You've got over your fear of the podcast. One step in the right direction. Yeah. Okay.
Whether I listen to this one is a completely different subject.
Oh, dude, no, I totally get it. I hate listening to my own voice. That's fine. That's normal. But yeah. Look, if you want to get involved with the podcast, if you want to drop us a topic suggestion or just say hello or tell us what you think about what we've been saying, then you can get in touch with us in so many different ways. If you go to your browser and you search WeSpeakCommon.com, you'll get a lovely list of all of the places you can listen and find us. We're on Twitter and Instagram at WeSpeakCommon. We are available at WeSpeakCommon at hotmail.com. fablesofgames@gmail.com. That's the email address. And if you go to our Twitter or our website, you can find the Patreon where you can support the podcast if you want to, and you get some fun benefits like some homebrew options that I have written up, like a new sorcerer class that uses the spell point variant rule. Interesting. You also get access to the wonderful Discord server, which is growing every single day. We just got a new guy jump in with us today. There's lots of conversations, topic suggestions, and D&D memes. It's a right laugh. Come and say hello if that's a thing you want to do. Cool. Wesley, thank you so much. I will speak to you in like an hour and a half's time, because we're going to play TOA and I'm very excited.
Exciting. Jungle time.
Yeah, oh my god, it is jungle time. Oh, I'm buzzing. All right, dude. See you later.
See you later.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.